Welcome back to the fifth episode of our television podcast. We are talking about The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 2, Through the Valley, as well as the studio Season 1, Episode 6, The Pediatric Oncologist. I'd like to apologize to video listeners of the pod. Another episode where the sun is shining through my window. I also want to
It's
start.
just the time of day we record this.
Yeah, this is just kind of the usual, I guess. But the other thing I wanted to talk about really quick before we jump into the episodes, a little housekeeping, is just on the wider scale in terms of what shows we're going to possibly talk about at some point. Because the thing is, unlike our movie podcast where we could kind of keep up with new releases and the fact that this is, I guess, our secondary podcast, a bonus podcast, if you will, we're
It's
not.
a fun little
Yeah,
project.
we're not going to
Yeah,
keep up with TV as best as we can with movies.
no desire.
However, uh, there are two new shows airing, or that just aired this week, or started airing this week, that uh, we are not talking about today. One of which is a show that Doug really likes and has talked about publicly, Andor. Um,
Yes.
I have made the promise to Doug, whether or not this works out for the podcast and the listener, and whether or not this is something you're interested in. We're gonna find out later down the road if I can make this commitment. But what I have said to Doug is that if I manage to finish the first season of Andor and catch up on the second season by the final episodes, perhaps we can do an episode focusing on all of season two, which just started coming out as of recording this, I guess, yesterday. The other show that came out this week, I guess a show that has less for us to talk about week by week, but is just a big deal, is The Rehearsal, right?
Oh,
Which
shit.
just came
Yes,
out.
I forgot about
Um,
that.
I actually never finished the first season of The Rehearsal. That's on me. I started watching it the other day to try to catch up for this second season. Rewatching some of these episodes of the first season and then watching the ones that I haven't seen yet. Nathan Fielder may be the funniest guy alive. Maybe the funniest guy who's ever existed. It's so good. And again, it's on me for never finishing the first season. I was not as I don't when did it come out? Like 2022, I guess, right? I was not as like plugged into the world of Nathan Fielder as I am now. And so now it's like not that I wasn't aware of him or had not seen his other stuff, but I guess like now my it just scratches the itch in my brain so much more where I watch it and I'm like, this is the greatest thing anybody has ever done. So I don't know if we're gonna talk about that on a weekly basis, but perhaps we can or is it even are they dropping the whole second season? Like, did they just drop the whole second season at once, or is it a weekly
No,
thing?
I think it's an HBO show,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah, but sometimes they do
I
stuff
think
like
it's in the
in one
time
big
slot
package.
before The Last of Us.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think
Well,
it's like The Rehearsal, then The Last of Us, and
yeah.
then whatever the show that plays later is.
Okay. Well, anyway, the point is, I don't know if we're going to talk about that every week. I don't know if it's like a show that warrants that, but perhaps when it gets to the end of its season two run here, we can also talk about that a little bit because that's a big deal and one of the only other shows that we actually like care about and can enjoy and like would want to discuss on a podcast like this. So that's a little bit of housekeeping in terms of just throwing out the other shows that are currently on our radar for the near future.
Yeah, so
Um,
as it is right now, we will be done with this with this podcast will be
when The Last of Us
tentatively
ends.
finished when The Last of Us ends, which is in 10 weeks, right?
Less than that. I think there's
Oh,
only, like
8 weeks?
I think there's only somebody told I don't I listen, and this is us just, like, not keeping up with TV stuff. Someone told me that this season only has 7 episodes, and I was like, "I don't believe you, but maybe they're right."
That's
Maybe
crazy.
I don't I don't know if that's true, but I was like, "That doesn't seem like enough," but I think they might be right.
Yeah,
I think
so it'll be tentatively done when The Last of Us
May
ends.
25th. Yeah.
Yeah, and on
Is the
May so
final episode. The studio's final episode is, I think just a little bit before that. The studio's final episode will be May 21st, so same
Mhm.
week they'll be ending. But yeah, then we could also dedicate a whole episode to Andor if we end up doing that.
Yep.
And then, there may be some lulls in this podcast.
We
It's not
have
a weekly
tentative
thing, but
plans to bring the podcast back at another point in time. Whether or
yes.
not that happens as we have envisioned it, is up to say, so we will not
Yeah,
announce it.
we'll find out. I mean, again, it's just
Um,
like it's hard to keep up. I applaud people who do TV podcasts because it's a lot harder to keep up with like watching several like hours of shows as opposed to just us like going to the movies once or
well,
twice a weekend.
the
Um,
Andor thing is crazy. Like, if you're covering if
yeah, that's like so frustrating.
it's like actually, it's like 2 hours between the 3 episodes last night were, like, 2 hours long. It was crazy.
Yeah,
It was cool, but,
no,
like
I mean genuinely, if I kn if I kn if the episodes were coming out weekly, I probably would have more of a desire to rush through it and catch
mhm,
up, but releasing them in a package, like it's like, if we're already currently talking about 2 shows, and now you reveal to me that on the same day as one of the shows airs, I have to also watch 3 new episodes of another, like, that's just not happening week by week for me, like,
yeah,
I
yeah.
can't commit to that, and so that's kind of the problem with Andor, but you know, we'll talk about it hopefully when I could catch up on that because Doug has done nothing but talk about how good it is, and he is not the only
It's so
person.
good.
Several people whose opinions I trust on the internet, at least, have spoken up about how good it is, and some of the stuff that I have seen people say about it, I'm like, oh, this seems like I would really like it, and I
Yeah.
appreciate the work of Tony Gilroy, and I appreciate that it's probably actually as good as you say it is.
Yeah.
So
The
I'll get
biggest
around to
problem
that.
with Andor is that it's a Star Wars show, because that makes it
Yeah,
harder to pitch to people.
yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing is, and this is only if you ever want to, or if the listeners are interested in, because now we have kind of passed that point. But if you do finally, since you have started watching The Pit, get through all of the first season, we could dedicate a whole episode, perhaps after The Studio and The Last of Us are done, we could do an entire episode on The Pit if people are interested in that.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm gonna finish The Pit. I'm only a couple episodes deep right now. It's not highest
yeah,
priority, and it's a
yeah,
little long, but I'm gonna finish it
right,
for
of
sure.
course. Anyway, to shift gears, we have two incredible episodes of TV to talk about. One is a massive cultural moment. The other
Mhm.
is just really fun to watch.
Which
But we're
episode's
gonna,
better? We'll
yeah, we're gonna.
all will be revealed.
Listen, I'm not gonna have a hot take about that one, um, but we're gonna start with the big, huge moment that just happened this past Sunday, which is that the second episode of The Last of Us, and spoilers ahead, massive. If somehow you managed to avoid this,
We're talking about the
massive
whole
spoilers
plot.
ahead.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
this is the episode that game players may have been looking forward to, or maybe not looking forward to because that makes it sound positive, but awaiting, which is this is the episode where Joel dies, and
Yes.
I there's a lot to talk about. Like we have to talk about several things in the episode, but what I will say, just like first and foremost, is that Doug and I's, at least over text, immediate reaction what and granted, this is an overreaction, but in the
Oh, yeah.
moment that I was watching it, I was like, "Is this the greatest episode of television that I've ever seen?" The answer is no,
No,
but
not even close, but it's really
not even
good.
close. But I was so like, what I will say, and I don't know how for TV, this is kind of like all that matters to me. And I know that this is like one of my character flaws or whatever, and probably conflicts with the fact that we're doing a TV podcast. But one of the only things that matters to me when I'm watching TV, as people know, based on the types of shows that I typically enjoy watching, is that like I want to be entertained or emotional or something like the quality of the filmmaking, or I guess in this case, TV making, not always the most important to me. And so what I will say, and some of this stuff contributes to that quality, but this is, and I knew the death was coming, as
Mhm.
many people did. This is the hardest I've cried at a piece of visual media since After Sun came
Yeah,
out.
After Sun.
Like, I was a fucking mess watching this. I cried for like an hour after the episode ended. And then by the time that hour was over, people already started to post TikTok edits of Joel and Ellie. And that was my whole For You page. So then I would watch edits and start crying at the edits again. And I have been crying for several days. It's Wednesday as of recording this. This came out on Sunday. So for the past several days, I have been watching TikTok edits and crying every single time I see one and just thinking, and nothing gets me as bad as like these edits where, oh, like I saw one where it was Joel in the first episode talking to the therapist and her being like, "What did you do to her?" And then he's like, "I saved her." And then it's like a montage of all of the like their moments together in season 1 and then him dying at the end of it, and I was like, "Why would you do this to me? This is the most evil thing I have ever seen." I was like, I love this, and then I start, and then the fucking comments start pouring in of people being like, "Oh, Joel's last thought before he died was like him knowing that he can't save Ellie and that they're probably gonna kill her too," or like all this stuff, like all these like things about like what was like going on in his brain when he was dying, and I was like, I want to kill myself right now. Like I was like, I don't want to be alive. Like it was so depressing.
Yeah,
Um,
I really big moment, and we knew that it was a really big moment. It's listen, when the game came out, it was such a big moment. Right? It was a cultural moment when the game came out. Way more people are watching the show than played the game.
yeah.
Uh, which and a lot of people played the game.
Yeah, big game. One of the biggest for us for several years, one of the like at least of its type, definitely the biggest game for like multiple years.
Yeah, one of the most popular games of all time.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, single player games of all time. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh, yeah. Really, I don't know. It's
Like
like conversations about The Last of Us online on social media, I have a hard time with a little bit because it is a lot of people kind of just nitpicking and
I
saying
wanted
that
to talk about this so bad.
everything that is different about the show from the game is like immediately negative.
I wanted to talk about this so bad. And
And
I
then
like
also,
you
it's
know,
a lot of people just, like, bitching about Bella Ramsey's casting still, and
yes.
I'm like,
Yes.
dude,
Which
we need to get past
that's
this."
a separate
Yeah,
conversation we could have because I actually have a positive spin on that conversation that I wanna get to,
yeah.
but the video game aspect of it, it's like, you know, I like totally get it, and I enjoyed I never played the second game, I said this, but I really enjoyed the first game. The first game was, as far as like single player narrative games go, was my favorite game for a very long time. I really liked that game, and so I understand the connection that people have to these characters and to the way that it's shown in the game and whatever. It seems, and this is not everybody. Some people I know personally who have a relationship to the game have complained about things where I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But a lot of complaints I've seen on the internet, it sounds like you just want to play the game. Like it sounds like you don't want a TV show about the game to exist in the first place.
Y
We've talked
yeah,
about this with
yeah,
other like property before in the past. And again, this is like kind of in some ways maybe a little bit hypocritical. Obviously, we talked so much about how the Minecraft movie was nothing like the game that we played or whatever. Like, so like I get it from that perspective. It doesn't even, the problem is the Minecraft movie doesn't even capture the vibe of what playing Minecraft was. The Last of Us show is giving you the same events in a different way, but it's not like it's still The Last of Us, you know? It's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
and
yeah.
as the creators have talked about, it is them changing things for a different medium. Like, it's like you are
That's the
adapting it
yeah.
differently because you are making a TV show as opposed to the game that you already made that already exists for the people who are so obsessed with the game. Like,
A lot of very intelligent people have already pointed this out, and that is that The Last of Us Part 2 is a very excellent video game. The whole thing from the ground up was designed to be a video game. Like you playing in The Last of Us Part 2, forcing you to play as Abby after she kills Joel and you not knowing why she killed Joel, right? And forcing you in like in that
yeah,
position, like you have to play as her in the video game to progress, right? There's not
yeah,
an option, you know.
yeah,
It's like these are a lot of very intelligent decisions that were made because it is a video game and it works like a
yeah,
video game. They changed a lot of stuff because the TV show's not a video game, it's a TV show,
yeah. You're not
and they're
playing it.
yeah.
Yeah,
So like us knowing Abby's motivation and this and that and a couple other like narrative things like also the Jackson, the attack on
yeah.
Jackson
Which I
that
want
wasn't
to
part
talk
of the
about
game.
separately because that is like a huge
Yes.
thing. But
Right. It's like these decisions, right? These are creative decisions that are being made because it's episodic television.
yeah,
And you could be critical of that and say like I dislike the show because of that and that's fine, but
yeah,
it is so different from the game now. We're entering an era where it's so different from the game because The Last of Us Part 2 works so well for so many people because it is a video game and that is
yeah.
how from inception the story was conceived of because it was a video game.
Yeah, exactly, and so it's almost like, I don't know. Yeah, it's just it's a frustrating conversation because it's so much of it is just like, yeah, the game exists. Like, it's like the thing you love so much is the game, and
And
so
right
I get that.
before the season started, I saw people that are like, fine. I like I'm not casting moral judgment on any of these people, right? But
Sure.
but it's just I disagree about this one thing. Uh I saw these people and they were saying, I have no interest in even watching the show because the game is so good. Just play the game. So there's that people are saying that, and then people are saying like, oh, but like, why did they change this thing about the game? And it's
Yeah,
like these
I don't
you
know.
know what I mean? You can't
Yeah,
win.
it's
You can't
very
win.
easy for me to separate them in my head because they're both like they both exist as like, you know, again, terrible point of comparison, but just because I already said it, it's like the Minecraft movie in quality is so much worse than my favorite video game ever. But the fact that The Last of Us is like a show made by a great team featuring great actors and like, you know what I mean? It's like these are two quality things where it's like if I want to play the game, I could go enjoy the game, and if I want to watch the show, I could go enjoy the show, and both of them are good. And so I think they could just both exist. Like it's fine.
Yeah, it's its
So
own
that's
thing
one.
now. That's
Um,
the thing. Craig Mazin is kind of like claiming it a little bit with the help of
yeah,
Neil Druckmann, but yeah.
yeah, but it's also like, yeah, it's the audience is different as well, which is like something you have to keep in mind, which is that like the game players are only the game players, but now the show is an entire group of people who love the game that want to watch it in the show, and then an entire separate group of people who don't play video games,
Yeah,
or just who haven't played this game.
yeah.
Either way, so it's like
Lots of
the
people
amount of videos
watch
I've seen
TV.
of people like posting their like parents' reactions to watching this episode of The Last of Us and like seeing that happen. I'm like, there's a whole crowd of people who had no idea that that was going to happen.
I
So
saw
that's a big part.
somebody on Twitter, Twitter X. I saw somebody on Twitter X say that uh the Joel dying at the beginning of The Last of Us Part 2 is the most challenging narrative decision most gamers had ever had to face on in their entire lives of playing video games.
Yeah,
And it's like it's a pretty challenging decision for a TV show, but it's like, you know, Ned Stark dies in Game of Thrones. Like the shit happens
sure.
in,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
like in TV.
It
It's
does
not.
happen. I did see one tweet that I thought was, like, sort of dismissive where, like, people were talking about, like I forget what the exact wording was, but essentially just, like, like, brain of the average gamer and being like, this is, like, the most emotional thing that has, like, happened to somebody who plays video games, but it's just, like, normal for TV, and I was like, "This is not normal for
It's
TV."
pretty
Like, it's like
exceptional still,
it's
but yeah.
yeah, you know what I mean? It's like I get where you're coming from, where it's like you just mentioned Ned Stark and like all these,
Mhm.
there are plenty of shows that have made me emotional in the past, and plenty of character deaths in shows that have made me emotional. The emotional weight of this moment is like very significant, regardless of if you watch that much stuff. There are very few character deaths in anything I've ever seen that are going to fuck me up as much as this. So I think that's a little bit dismissive. But the other thing that I wanted to talk about aside from this, and we could talk about more details of that scene if you care, but like the episode was also just really good leading up to that. A lot happens leading up to that. And so there's a moment in the episode where I was like, oh, because we talked about it last week and we talked about it in general, which is like when are they going to do this? And for a second there, I thought it might not even be an episode two. And then there's the scene where Abby rolls down the hill and the zombies come out, and I was like, it's happening this episode. Like as soon as I knew that she was going to meet Joel, I was like, it's this episode. And so that like kind of shifted. But the other stuff that happens this episode is pretty significant. Jackson gets absolutely destroyed. Not absolutely. I mean, a lot of people survived and blah blah blah, but it's pretty bad for the infrastructure of Jackson because of the zombie horde that happens. It's very like Game of Thrones esque, which is how people
Very,
have been
yeah.
talking about it.
Yeah.
It's like battling like White Walkers or whatever. It's like it feels
It
like a very significant Game of Thrones battle, which is
yes.
cool. I mean, very awesome. Not in the game, notably. Um,
Yeah,
so
they
that was
Craig Mazin, because it is a huge change for having Jackson get like destroyed
yeah,
during Joel's death.
yeah.
It's Craig Mazin and their companion show to The Last of
Which I
Us.
finally listened to, by the way.
Yeah,
I
it's
finally
good. I
listened to
mean,
an
if you
episode.
really like the show, it's worth listening to.
Yeah,
He said, and I think it's a good narrative choice. I think it's a good you know, it would have been fine if this whole thing, if the whole episode was just Joel dying. I think that also would have been totally fine. It would have been very different.
Sure.
But I think it's like I think it's a good narrative choice to have this B plot of Jackson getting invaded because it mirrors Joel's death, where it's like Joel dying is
Yeah.
like kind of the community self-destructing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this also, like, it changes a lot of other things where it's like, my understanding is that in the game, Tommy is with Joel as opposed to Dina, who is
Yeah.
with Joel in the show, and but Tommy can't be there obviously because of Jackson, and so that also we don't even need to talk about that right now. But the thought of having to watch episode 3 and Tommy finding out about Joel's death is like, if as bad as I cried this episode, I'm gonna cry just as much on this coming Sunday. Like, I can't believe I have to fucking deal with that too. That's gonna be fucking brutal. But yeah, I thought it was really cool. I thought uh Tommy had some awesome moments. Like, he very
Yeah.
much to me is like, and maybe it's because of their relationship, but then also just like his kind of character and the fact that I know that they kind of, you could almost treat them as similar archetypes, is like, he just like kind of like fills that void for me now where I'm like, I love this guy almost as much as I love Joel. And so like, you know, stuff's gonna happen to Tommy at some point too, probably. But I you know what I mean? Like, he kind of fills the emotional gap that Joel leaves behind as best as he can. Obviously, he's
Yeah.
not Joel,
Yeah.
but so seeing him like kind of just be a badass all episode, and also just like, I don't know, I thought there was a lot of like neat little decisions that they made in adding that to this episode that were really cool. Like, there's the scene where they're lined up with the flamethrowers and two of the people just like run away and leave Tommy there by himself. I'm like, that is a very real thing that somebody in that situation would definitely do, you know? It's like they are very comfortable hiding out in this town, and even if they are supposed to be, like, the people who step up in this situation, like, they're hiding in this town for a reason. Like, they this level of comfort that they have in this town, like, it's not even, you know, I you know what I mean? It's like, 'cause Tommy, you would never like, he would ne you just know based on the character that he would never run away in that situation, but it's like, I also can't blame someone else for doing it, you know? Like, I'm like, even though it's like, from a me watching a show perspective, I'm like, "You're an asshole," but from a me thinking about them as, like, a real human being, I'm like, "No, yeah, that makes sense." Like, I would probably also run away. So I don't know, like, little details like that, I'm like, "This is very well done." I really appreciated that whole thing. It did, yeah, it did feel like watching an episode of Game of Thrones, and I was like, "This is very
Yeah, it
cool."
really did.
Um, I thought really everything, about everything that comes before the big death, I thought was like just as good as an episode of television as the big death scene. But the other thing I wanted to talk about in reference to the death scene and the greater conversation to have here, the positive spin I want to put on the situation is like, Bella Ramsey is so good, man.
Yes.
They're
Yes.
so good. Um,
No, I think it's very bizarre where we talk about how people that play the games kind of like are having a hard time. Not that's not true. Some people that play the games like don't like stuff about the show because it's different from the game, right? And that's I don't even think that's like the majority of people, but it really feels like there's a real divide on the internet, which is not real life, but on the internet, it feels like there's a real divide where people that like are kind of totally enamored by Bella Ramsey's performance and by people that are like just so in their ways saying like they needed to get recasted for season 2 or recast
yeah,
for season 2. It's like it's so like they are so miscast as Ellie in season 2. And it's like I don't understand how you still feel that way. Like
it's
I mean
so
it's
ridiculous.
so ridiculous. It's so crazy to me. It's so people are saying that Caitlin Deaver would have been the perfect season 2 Ellie, and I'm like, Caitlin Deaver is an old lady, bro.
Okay,
Like
she's
whatever.
like 28, but
That's
no, I
Ellie's
know.
that's so
I
old.
know, I
Bella
know, but I'm
Ramsey
just
is so
saying,
age appropriate.
I just meant like, maybe not the correct way to
No,
label her,
I'm
but
exaggerating, but, like, you know what I mean? It's
yeah, no,
it's
of
and
course.
also, like, how crazy it would be if Caitlin Deaver if they recast Bella Ramsey with Caitlin Deaver, that would be
Yeah,
insane, that would be ridiculous. No, Bella Ramsey's so good for I and this. Bella
yeah.
Ramsey freaks the fuck out.
No, I agree. And the thing I wanted the greater conversation I wanted to have, which is like I know not a conversation that you love having, but that I'm more curious in TV is the Emmys, the big Emmys.
Oh, sure, yeah.
The Oscars of the TV world. Uh Bella Ramsey could win this thing. You know, I was looking, and again, I'm no TV expert, but I do watch the Emmys despite how little TV I watch, and so I kind of feel as though I at least sort of understand how voting works for TV awards and what they're interested in. And the other thing I will say is that Pedro Pascal going in supporting instead of lead means that he could definitely win that Emmy as
Well, that
well.
that little boy from
Uh,
Adolescence is gonna be in supporting.
That's in limited series though, not
Oh,
drama.
it's different? The
Yes.
Emmys
So
are
that
silly. Okay, yeah.
yeah, that boy is going to win the Emmy, but
But it's a
that's
different
okay.
Emmy. I see,
Yeah,
okay.
that's a different Emmy. Supporting actor, yeah, so supporting actor for limited series, they have him predicted to win, the Owen Cooper from Adolescence. But supporting actor in a drama, they can definitely give to Pedro Pascal. So but the thing that I want to talk about really is that actress category, uh, because, like, that's that's very possible. I was looking at the other potential nominees, and, I not that I could totally guess this correctly, but just based on this article, they have their predicted winner is Kathy Bates in Matlock, which is a show that I do not watch and that nobody I know watches, but I know exists. I know exists because I've seen it at award shows before. I don't believe that Kathy Bates has won for this show yet. I believe every time she's been nominated for this show, uh, she has lost to somebody. People really love Kathy Bates. That is worth noting. Kathy Bates very well respected,
This is
but
not a real show.
yes, my point exactly. And so if that's their predicted winner, I think it's possible to beat her. The other people nominated, like she could, or Bella Ramsey, they could win this. Again, confusing because stupid that it's a fucking actress category, but
Yeah,
whatever.
Bella
That
Ramsey,
yeah,
non-binary person that
yes,
is
exactly.
running in supporting
And
actress.
and
It's
or
very
lead
or yeah,
actress,
lead
but
actress, I'm sorry, yes.
but then the other people, Britt Lauer for Severance, which I'm sure is a great performance, but that seems beatable, not like, impossible. I know it's a big show. Melanie Linsky for Yellow Jackets also seems like Bella Ramsey could top that. I mean, Yellow Jackets, pretty popular show. Elizabeth Moss for The Handmaid's Tale seems like good competition. I know it's the final season of The Handmaid's Tale, and so that might incline people to vote
Are people
in
still
Elizabeth Moss's
watching that?
direction.
Anyways, but yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I never got into it, but I'm sure it's good. And then the other person is Kerry Russell for The Diplomat. I don't see that being a win. And so, again, this could all change probably between now and September, but if that's like what the field looks like, does not seem impossible for Bella Ramsey to get an Emmy, which I'm like, that would be very cool. It would also be like an awesome slap in the face to how everybody on the internet has been talking about them in
Yeah.
regards to the show, which is really the only thing that I kind of enjoy about the possibility of them winning the Emmy. Um, I'm curious. It's fun because so many of the shows that we're talking about are kind of the big heavy hitters at the end. I mean, we're not talking about some of them, and some of them are other. Some of the shows we're not talking about, I also watch, but like several nominations will be going in the direction of The Last of Us, The Studio in the comedy category, The Pit, which I have been talking about endlessly. Like these are going to be and Andor, of course, is also going to be nominated in a bunch of categories. So like these are all shows that are going to be pretty big at the Emmys. I'm curious to see what happens.
Me too. I don't really know. I don't really care about award shows, but it is like I
Yeah,
don't know how the Emmys um at all because like, Andor is getting the most ridiculous reviews from big publications.
yeah.
And I'm like, does that matter for awards? Like I have no idea. Like
Well, kind of though, maybe because the thing is like I don't know. They're a little bit hard to predict because there was a section there where I was like, "Oh, I know who's gonna win every single time." Because, for example, when Succession was going through that final season, I was like, "There's not a single award show that Succession is not gonna clean up at in the drama category."
yeah.
And then there were several years in a row where I was rooting so hard for Barry in the comedy category, and it kept losing to The Bear. But then more recently, now the Bear is getting destroyed by hacks, like out of nowhere. Out of nowhere, the one year where everybody was like, "Oh, the Bear's just gonna win again because it wins every season." Hacks just won like all the comedy awards, and then people were like, now it's Hacks. And
Mhm.
so like the fact that that could switch that easily in the middle of a show that was already dominating means that like the voters could go another way. Like it might not just be the same show winning every year. I don't know exactly, but I'm curious about that because there are like a couple of those shows that exist where like in your head you tell yourself that every season of this show that comes out is just going to win all the awards. And that is how I felt about shows like The Bear until it started losing. So now I'm like, okay, I guess anything, so yeah, maybe people just love Andor. I don't know.
I don't
We'll
know.
see. But I feel like the Last of Us could perform well.
Yeah, no, yeah, of course. It's
To
like the biggest show on TV, yeah,
yeah, yeah,
in
but to
terms
be
of, like,
determined.
viewership,
The other thing
outside of Netflix.
yeah, the other thing I wanted to talk about before we move on to the studio was that, on the subject of, like, how this big event and the fact that we still have 5 episodes of the season left, Doug and I privately have talked about the fact that, Pedro Pascal will probably appear in flashback episodes.
Pedro
Uh,
Pascal will probably be the first face we see in the next episode,
yeah,
to be
um
honest.
so he'll be in flashback episodes, most
Mhm.
likely. Uh, and they've hinted at that before as well. That is like their plan, I guess.
Well, and
So I'm
the game
surprised.
is, non-linear, so there's a lot of
Yeah,
flashbacks in the game as well. Yeah.
yeah. Um, but I'm wondering because and this could just be an over like a reach, but because so many people do not like Bella Ramsey and do not care for the Caitlin Deaver casting and really probably only watch the show for the biggest TV star on the planet, Pedro Pascal. I'm wondering if like next week's viewership just goes down, you know? Because it's like how
Do
many
do you think
people
it's going to be like a Glenn situation where after Glenn died in The Walking Dead, it was like
people stop watching that show?
it was like a
Yeah.
quarter of the viewership went down the next episode. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was like a huge insane drop off of viewership.
And that's what I'm curious about because I'm like, because the point that I saw brought up, and I don't see people like latching onto this, but the point that I saw brought up is like someone left this very witty comment where they were like, people are gonna come back for the same reason that we kept playing the game, which is that like you want revenge, you know? And I'm like, yeah, the problem is people don't like Bella Ramsey in the show, but the like
I think
positive spin.
normal people like Bella Ramsey,
Sure,
not
yeah,
that
but you
play
know
the
what I'm talking
game.
about.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm talking
yeah.
about the people whose viewership they would lose, and so I'm like, the positive spin is that maybe Bella Ramsey's revenge tour would be the thing that wins people over. I don't think that'll
Right.
happen, but,
No,
um,
yeah.
I don't know. I'm curious because the other thing is like I don't know.
Well,
The
also, like, the game is about how revenge is bad. It's
yeah,
also
but the crowd you have no, but the problem is like the crowd you have to consider is not and this isn't to say that everybody who plays the game understands what you just said because
Right.
that would be generous, but the problem is with that crowd of people who do not play the game at all. Like
Mhm.
that's where you could lose the viewership. Because I saw I saw a TikTok comment where someone was like there's no way they killed Joel and this guy in the same week. And apparently I was unaware of this, but apparently on this week's episode of 911, the show
911?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
on
yeah,
this
yeah,
week's
yeah.
episode of 911, they killed the main character. And like the main guy, they killed him this week and he's like leaving the show. And you know what the craziest part is? I was reading more about this because fun fact about me. This isn't a fun fact, actually. This is kind of just embarrassing. But I watched like the first 3 seasons of 911 live.
Of course. You
They're
and
on like
millions
season
of other people.
but they're on like season 9 now or whatever the fuck they're on. And the showrunners said that this was not like a dispute between them. This was not like the actor wanting to leave the show. They said it was a creative choice to kill him. And I'm like, this is not the show for making creative choices, dude. Just stick to the formula. You know what I mean? I'm like,
That's so for,
there's
like,
no
daytime
need.
TV, that's so funny.
Yeah, it's like, do you think that the average 911 viewer was like, "Damn, I really love this bold stroke." Like, I could really applaud you guys for
So
taking a risk.
brave, so
Like
brave. Yeah.
like, that's so
That's
crazy.
so funny, actually.
So that's like a silly thing that happened, unless this comment just completely lied to me, but I'm pretty sure that is what just happened this past week. So I'm like, that's very funny that like the average adult who doesn't play video game The Last of Us and just like watches TV at night watched both of those things happen in the same week. That's a really silly idea to think about. But anyway, speaking of silly, let's talk about
The
the studio's
studio.
sixth episode. Uh,
Oh, dude,
is this
dude,
the first episode where we're gonna agree?
dude, this shit is so fucking funny. It is so funny. It is so funny.
This is the funniest episode of the show to
It's
me.
so funny because here's the thing: losers like you and me can relate to this. That's the
I was
thing.
literally watching the show and I was like, this is so embarrassing and also literally me.
I've
Literally,
had
I was like,
for instance,
literally me.
I don't like he is very it's a different situation because he is a very wealthy person. He's a
Yeah.
like he's more wealthy than all of the people he's talking to
Yeah.
and more successful in his respective field than any of the
I also
people he's talking
know
to.
me and you hopefully also know when to like stop ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
But
how to stop being annoying in social situations.
but the when he's like talking to these people and he's saying stuff like okay, back up. This episode is about Seth Rogen is dating a cancer doctor, right? And
Yes, a pediatric oncologist,
yes,
a
a,
children's
a
cancer
children's
doctor,
cancer doctor,
played by Rebecca Hall, by the way.
which is crazy. Rebecca Hall is amazing.
Yeah.
Uh, and they're dating, and she like doesn't give a fuck about movies. Like even like she thinks it's like
Yeah.
dumb and
Dude,
stupid.
the
Like
parts where she starts like, some of the funniest bits in the episode for me were the parts where she starts to, like, reveal how little she watches movies, where he's just, like, talking I forget what movie he's talking about because I watched the episode yesterday, but he says something and she's like, "Yeah, I think I've probably only seen 50 movies in my life," and I was like, "That is, like this is a real conversation that I have had
yeah,
with
yes,
several people."
yes. Yeah, and the whole episode is that Seth Rogen has to go to an event with her, with all of her doctor friends are there, right?
Yeah,
And yeah, that's the base, and none of them care about movies. And
yeah.
that
All of
conversation,
them are making fun of the fact that that is what he does.
yeah, and that like that her being like, oh, I've only seen like 50 movies. I'm like, that's so man. I've had interactions like that before, or later.
There are sentences in this episode that are word for word real things that I or someone I know has said before.
It's he dude, I've been in like I relate to this so much. They're in bed together, like in the morning drinking coffee, right? And the it's a fake action franchise comes up,
I
like
literally
MK
I
Ultra.
was watching that and I was like, this is Doug talking to somebody about like Resident Evil or something.
Dude, I've had conversations like this about Mission Impossible, where it's like where the person or literally like in bed watching TV, and the person is like, "Yeah, I've never like I don't really know anything about this." And I'm like, "What do you mean you don't know about Mission Impossible?" And he's like that. What is about MK Ultra? And then the other person, like Rebecca Hall, is like, "Oh, we just gotta watch them all together, I guess." And then
Yeah.
and then Rebecca Hall is like, "How many are there?" And then he says there's 7, and then she has like the funniest face look
Yeah.
on her face, dude, because
She's like, I guess we're watching all of them.
she's like, "Oh, there's 7."
The part where they're talking, the amount of conversations I've had with romantic partners in the past, about movies and, like, specifically those partners who are not movie people like me, and then there's a scene where they're walking at this gala or whatever, and she says something like he names some other movie that they have to watch together, and she's like, "What's that? Number 47 on our list?" The amount of times that I have been in a situation with like a romantic partner and been like, "This is like another movie for us to add to the list of movies that we have to watch together." Every single person I have ever dated, I have had that conversation with.
Yeah,
Like,
the movie also in that situation was in the episode was Fight Club. He
right,
brings up
yes,
Fight
okay.
Club, and she's like, "Oh, I guess we gotta add it to the list."
Yeah. And I'm just like, "This is so funny." Like, all of that was really funny, yeah, Rebecca Hall's great, like you said, and like I was saying, this is again, I think this is the first time where, like, you and I are on totally the same page, where, like, we both love the episode because, like, I feel like at least so far.
Yeah, yeah,
For
yeah.
5 episodes so far, we have gone back and forth about the degrees to which we like it.
Mhm.
And this is so, like, I was like, "This
No,
is
it's so
I got it now."
funny.
Because what you looked for in the episodes and what I looked for in the episodes was different, but, like, I found the joy in what the appeal of the show is for you this episode. Like, this is the first episode where I watched where it was, like, about one of the characters' personal lives, and I was like, "Oh, I get like, this is just funny." Or not even, like and you know what's interesting is, like, this is the first episode that is kind of ex like, there is still a movie involved, which you could talk about because that's also really funny, but for the most part, this is, like, the least involving a project episode that we've had. Like, the movie that is the focus of this episode is as far in the background as it has been in any episode so far, where it's like, this is the first episode where they're not, like, on a production or working on trying to get a movie done. It's just, like, kind of set dressing.
Yeah, it's like
Uh,
they're tinkering with the trailer for a new Johnny Knoxville movie.
which
Uh,
That's my guy, okay? I love that guy. I Johnny Knoxville and by the way, like, when we talked, I think last week's episode, we were like, "Oh, who's the special guest next episode?" And then we were looking at the cast and they, like, weren't there. And so I just didn't know that Johnny Knoxville was in this episode. And then he shows up, right? Well, first of all, he shows up first in the trailer, and it is
yeah.
like this, like, weird zombie movie, and then it cuts, and you see Johnny Knoxville and Josh Hutcherson standing next to each other, and I was like, "This is really good." I was like,
Yeah.
"This is really fucking funny."
Josh Hutcherson would be in that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he would.
Hutchinson? Is that
Hutcherson.
Hutcherson? Yeah,
Yeah.
he would be in that movie. He was in fucking Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah.
That's
No, yeah, he would be. He also did Five Nights at Freddy's at a point in his career where he needed it bad, you know? Maybe now post Five Nights at Freddy's, he could afford to pick him a little bit,
a little
but,
yeah.
uh,
Not being the and the
he
movie is,
needed the
like,
Five Nights at Freddy's money at that point in time.
such a funny, like, fake movie, right? Because they can do whatever they want with these fake movies. Such a funny fake movie to be like, it's a zombie movie where the infection spreads through explosive diarrhea. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, fuck it.
That's a movie
That's
that Johnny
funny.
Knoxville would, put out into the
Pitch.
world, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
for
I was
sure.
like,
An
it's very funny.
incredible touch to make it directed by, Spike Jonze
Yeah, Spike
also.
Jonze, I know, who's like their
Incredible detail.
who works on all of the Jackass movies,
Yes.
who produces all the Jackass movies, and who is, like, a close collaborator with Spike Jonze also just, like, such a fascinating guy to exist because it's so funny that, like, they, in this episode, reference it where they're like, "The director who made Her," and it's like, the the trajectory of Spike Jonze's career from, like, fucking asshole who makes, like, Jackass movies to making something like Her, and
And
then just
now
kind of, like
retiring, basically. Yeah.
right, but then, like, pitching him as, like, this guy who it's like, "This is the guy who made Her," and it's like, it's very funny because it's like, yeah, he is in many ways that guy, like, he is a great artist, but he is
Also,
also
at the
fucking
party at the party, Seth Rogen is like, "Yeah, actually, it's a very important movie from the director of Her." Or no, he
yeah,
says from Spike Jonze, and then everybody
yeah,
around the table is like,
they're
they
like,
don't
"We
know who
don't know
Spike
who Spike
Jonze is.
Jonze
I've
is."
been in that exact situation where I've been in a
Yeah.
group of
It's like, "You don't
people
know who Spike
and I
Jonze
and I
is?"
say Spike Jonze, and nobody knows who the fuck I'm talking about, and I'm like, I don't know how to just explain how, like, this is kind of like a big guy, you know? Like,
Yeah,
this guy's a big deal that, like, normal people
right.
should know about. He you know?
Yeah, well, that's how I had a very similar I think I might have mentioned this recently on the movie version of our podcast or a little while ago, but I had a similar conversation about Steven Soderbergh where I was talking about how important Steven
Way
Soderbergh
bigger
was.
deal.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, I mean, okay, maybe like it's hard to realize that the average person does not know Steven Soderbergh by name. Like it's not a nice feeling.
No, but, like, I mean, even then, he did, like, Ocean's 11, and
Sure,
that's
yeah.
what I don't know.
How many people know Ocean's 11 versus Steven Soderbergh, you know? Way
Yeah,
less
yeah,
people
yeah,
know who
yeah.
Steven Soderbergh is. It's just like, I don't know. Uh, but yeah, I all of that was funny. The movie, I thought I would literally just watch the movie. Like if you just put that in front of me right now, I'm watching the movie. I don't- I gotta if that was like a Netflix original that just came out, I don't care if it sucks. I'm watching it. Like that's one of those movies where I go out of my way despite it getting nothing but negative reviews for me to be like, yeah, I'm gonna watch this anyway.
Well, I mean, it being a Spike Jonze movie makes it so interesting if it was
Yeah,
a real thing, obviously, but
right,
yeah.
of course. All that's funny. All the stuff at the like gala thing that they go to, specifically with like the other people there, where where they're like dying to go to this golf tournament, and then he's just like, and the buildup is so long where there is like, I don't know how long it actually is, but it felt like it was like a 2-minute long scene of just like watching his face decide if he wants to bid on it. You know what I mean? And he's like,
Yeah,
he's gonna do it, but
yeah,
it takes them like so much time
and he,
for
like
him to finally put the bid in. It's like
he,
he's
like,
restraining
doubles the
himself
bid
for so
also.
long.
It's like
Yeah,
everybody's like
I thought he was gonna say way more. Like he doubled
oh.
it. I thought he was gonna be like $2 million or something.
Because they were like, "Okay, the cutoff point is 100K," which is a lot of fucking money, and
Yeah.
these are, like, really well-off doctors, right? And they're, like, talking about how it's, like, the cutoff point has to be 100K, and then they get up to 110K, which is, like, well, yeah,
Yeah.
and he's, like, talking about, "I'm gonna yeah, it's fine, I'll sell stock," you know? "I'll sell some of my
Yeah.
stocks," right? And then, bro, this asshole that, like, they don't even really respect or care about just, like, shits on it, 'cause that's
He's like, "Yeah, they sold me on golf." He's like,
he's like, 200,000. It's like,
which
"Damn,
is like,
bro."
it's so hard to believe that studio exec would not already have been golfing regularly,
Well,
but
but he's a nerd though. That's the
yeah,
thing. He's not
this
like
is
the other
true.
studio execs. He's
Yeah,
a
that's true.
nerd. Yeah.
Yeah, good, fair point, fair point. Yeah, I thought all of that was really funny. It's funny that kind of the one of those shows running bits is that he falls often, and
Oh,
this episode he takes like a catastrophic fall. First of
what
all, he
the
takes
fuck
2 falls
happened?
actually this episode, which is funny. I saw my
Yeah.
friend, I don't know if he's listening to this, but my friend Adam on Twitter pointed out, he was like, funny that since Seth Rogen was like a background character in last week's episode, they made up for it by having him fall twice this week. Because he falls like on the stairs when they're still at work,
Yeah.
and then he falls again and like has to go to the hospital. Um
I
so
love
it's such a good running
bro,
bit.
the Seth Rogen character is such a stupid asshole, dude.
Yeah.
It's like the last thing he says to also Rebecca Hall, his like insanely beautiful, like super ridiculously successful girlfriend that thinks that
Yeah.
he is like an endearing little like guy,
Guy. Yeah. It's
right?
like, dude, just play into it at that
No,
point.
literally. He's like
Like, it's
he
like,
like he
yeah, yeah,
has to
movies are
win.
dumb. Just be like, dude, if I'm in that situation, it's like, yeah, movies suck, dude. It's
Yeah,
like
you guys are
I
curing cancer.
it's
You
like
guys are
yeah, dude,
awesome.
I build Legos at work. That's what I do. I'm a fucking baby and I put Legos together and then movie gets
It's
made.
like you are you like you know, you're in there like you're wearing way more expensive clothes. Like you obviously make way more money than they do. It's like you've already
Yeah.
won like part of the life, you know?
Yeah.
Just act like your job's
Just admit it.
stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like
But also like then on the other hand, it's like I so get the urge to frame movies in the way that he's trying to, because the amount of times that I've had these conversations with people where, specifically because they bring up this conversation that you and I and Owen have had on our podcast before, and that like we've just had at large on the internet, about how many people just like, especially in this like streaming era, don't see this as much more than entertainment, and like it is just like a screen that you put in front of it, and it's like that's kind of it, and it's like mindless. And even if that's the case, and he says something like similar to this, which I thought was like really cool that they put into it, where it's like, even if that's the case, like this matters to people's lives. Like he has this line where he's like, like this is the stuff that like makes people's like you save lives and like we make people's lives worth living. And
yeah, exactly. Which is how,
it's like
it's how
that
people
is
like you
how
and
I've
I
talked about
feel.
movies
Yeah.
before, where I'm like, when people are very dismissive of this thing, and it's interesting because like so much of like my personal life's trajectory, like career wise, and like wanting to go into film, but also like then just the other interests I have. It's like, for me, I don't think that I could have a career that is not fulfilling in the way that like I need to affect other people with whatever I do. Like that is just like something for my brain chemistry that I like. And so people knowing that, and like would question, they'd be like, "Oh, so why would you go into movies?" And I'm like, I can't think of a way for my specific set of skills to impact more people's lives than to make movies, you know? Like that is like in my head that just makes so much sense. And what he's saying makes so much sense, where I'm like, yeah, this is how I've framed movies, because this is also how I understand it. Where it's like, I wouldn't be alive if I didn't spend my whole life watching movies and television. Like for most of my adult life and even before that, it's like this was the most important thing to me. Like,
Mhm.
and so I totally get that. And even if it's not for some other people, it's like this is it just like it affects such a wide number of people in such a meaningful way that it's like, sure, yeah, obviously I'm not fucking curing cancer, you know? It's like, but that's like, but it's
Hey,
so
neither is she. I'm
that's
joking.
true.
That's a joke
Well,
from the joke from the show.
yeah,
It's a joke from the show.
yeah, no, yeah. But it's like, you know what I mean? It's like yeah, when he says this thing where he's like, "Oh, just like say that what we're doing is like the same." I'm like, you know, it, you could argue this a million different ways because there's no like actual like numerical way to measure this, but it's like,
Granted, yeah, part of the show
that
is like
does matter.
the doctors are also being like real, like actual
Yeah, it's like
assholes
they're
about it.
not cool
Yeah,
people either,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
I get like it's like, yeah, like because that is there's a realization that he comes to in the middle of the episode where I'm like, I have had this exact light bulb go off before that I find so fascinating and I hate like I'm to many people in my personal life they may think I'm a pretentious asshole. I probably come off that way.
Everybody
But
thinks I'm a pretentious asshole
of
already.
course, because you
Yeah,
actually are. But the point is, my me as the guy, it's like I try to be a kind of a widely appealing person as far as like social situations go, where it's like I could do the whole like this is me talking to my movie friends, and this is me like being a dude bro and talking about sports or whatever. Like
yeah.
I could live multiple lives and be multiple characters or whatever. But and so I try not to come across super pretentious. But there have now been real situations in my life where I'm like, "Oh, the people who on paper are in so many ways smarter than me or more successful than me are like fucking like their lives lack what mine lacks." You know what I mean? Where it's like, and granted, I'm fucking, like depressed and life sucks or whatever, but like,
No, no, but you're onto
but
something. I've actually thought about this recently, about this exact same thing where so many people that I know are not into film, right? But it's not
yeah,
beyond that, where
and
it's
it's
like
not
they
even
don't.
film, it's like art. Like I'm
It's
like,
art.
art does not
Yes, yes.
affect your guys' lives. Like that blows my mind that you don't think about the and obviously like politics play a role in this as well, where it's like I've had this conversation with people about politics too and how little they care about politics or like the world at large. But it's like in my head, and I say this often, I'll say this on the record. I've said this on the podcast before. It's like I'm a stupid person. It's like I might read a lot about politics, I might watch a lot of stuff, like I might, but it's like I don't try to like put myself out there as like a guy who knows everything. I very often admit when I do not know something. But like to have conversations with these other people who I know who are like doing really difficult work in their work life or like, like whatever, and then I talk to them about movies and they're like, "Oh yeah, but that's just like garbage." And they're talking about like one of the best movies I've ever seen, you know what I mean? Like they're like, "Yeah, but that's," and I'll just like talk about something that to me is so apparent, like the major theme in a movie that is so easy to grasp, and they're like, "Yeah, I think you're thinking about it too deeply." And I'm like, "You're a fucking doctor, dude. Like, what do you mean I'm thinking about it too Like, you should be doing this." You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah, yeah,
that
I know what you
blows my
mean. I know
mind
what
that
you
that is
mean.
like the average person. And so like when he did that in the show, I was like, "Dude, I totally get you," because I'm like, "How?" And it's not like I'm not even just applying this to movies. I mean, like this is how I think about the world at large, like where it's like I see situation, like for example, very important political moment we're living in. When stuff happens in the world, I'm like, this is because of this. And I know this because this stuff is true. And then people are like, yeah, no, I never thought about it like that. I'm like, how? How have you never thought about it like this?
Yeah. Bro, your watch
So
of Andor is gonna hit like fucking crack. I
no,
swear to
I
God.
know. I know. But you know what I mean? I'm like, this is like, it's so crazy that is just like the average, and not even the average person, like the average, like educated person, like people who
No,
like,
yeah.
it's one thing if like you haven't
Some of
like
the smartest people in my real life that I've interacted with, I get confused because it's like, granted, some of them read and like read like popular books, like popular literature, right?
sure.
Like
Yeah.
Emily Henry, and that's just she's the most popular author that I can think of, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Colleen
but
Hoover. Sure.
but like they don't read books like that though. They read like Emily
Okay.
Henry and like
Okay.
stuff
So
like
they
that.
just yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. Right, so it's like I guess like and they're like really into it. Some of them are really into that. So like that's a different thing where it's like I understand, right? But a lot of people that I think are like, smart, like very good, like did very well in school,
Mhm.
have like, academically challenging jobs,
Yeah.
they're so like they don't really care
Yeah.
about art in any meaningful way at all,
Yeah.
and
And
that's
it's
so
just like
weird to me. I cannot relate to it. I cannot relate to it at all.
it's hard to grasp because it's also like I don't know. And again, this is like like we sound like Matt in the show because this is just like the nature of it. But it's like but it's so hard to grasp because I'm just like, what is your day-to-day life like? You know what I mean? It's like I get that like you probably work an exhausting job and you want to just like shut your brain off at home, but also it's like, you know, I I have never shut my brain off. I don't do that. Like and so it's like I don't, it's so strange to think that like they don't want
For a
even
lot of
even like
people, it's really is like, putting something on the TV, something, whether it's like a TV show or like a really popular TV show or just like Netflix slop or like
yeah.
YouTube videos, right? And then it's like scrolling on Facebook,
Yeah.
on your phone. And that's how you spend your free time when
Yeah.
you're not working on something.
But again, like the even greater point that I want to make is like this is not just like it's not just like specific to art where it's like this is just like how like I imagine people would interact with the world and they don't. Where it's like for example, like even these same types of people like they would probably it's not even just about like movies and TV shows which are very ease of access and require very little brain power, but it's also like some of these people would not like they wouldn't even want to take a trip to an art gallery and like think about like the art that they're looking at. You know what I mean? Where it's like but it's like, do you not like, does that not have an impact on your life? Where it's like when I see, like I go like when I go into the city and I go look at art face to face and I'm like moved and like I think about, like I see a piece of art and then I read the description and all of a sudden I am like transported to an entire world that doesn't exist anymore. You know what I mean? I'm seeing a painting from 200 years ago and I'm thinking about the entire life of this painter and I'm like so curious about everything that goes into this and then another person just looks at it and they're like, "Yeah, okay." And then they move on to the next one, you know? And so, I don't know, it's all just
Yeah.
like it's all just really interesting.
Yeah. No, it is so I don't
It's
know.
just like it's a
We're
different
annoying
world.
assholes, dude. We
No,
fucking
we
suck.
are,
We
and I get it,
suck.
and this is what I mean, like, I kind of, like, restrict this conversation with so many people in my life because I'm like, "No, I'm also not going to be that guy." Like, I'm not gonna be that guy to, like like Matt in this case, where it's like, have a conversation with a doctor, like, I try to meet people on their level typically, where it's like when
Yeah.
people are talking that way and they're like, "Oh yeah, I don't watch a lot of movies." I'm like, "Oh, you should watch it." You know what I mean? Like I try to like be like meet them in the middle and be like, "Oh, but I think you would like this." And then like kind of like tell them and I'm like, "You should do this, this and that." And I'm like, cuz I want people to think about that stuff. It's like I do just think it's
I
important
don't
for us to function as a society. Like I do think that us thinking critically and caring about art is an important step toward like bettering our world, Like so
Yeah.
many of the things that I know about life that I know to be true, and so much of like my moral compass is guided by having consumed to this point 25 years worth of art. So like
It's so interesting because I'll tell somebody in real life, we'll talk about like, oh, like what are we into? What do we
yeah,
spend our free time? And it's like I go to the movie theater like at
like
least
3 times a week.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, yeah, I go like at least 6 times a month, right?
Yeah.
At like the very least. And that to a normal person is like fucking crazy.
Crazy.
It's like
Yeah.
they can't even comprehend why I would want
Yeah.
to do that. And it's like, yeah, dude, I like watching movies, Like
Right.
I don't understand why that's so weird for some like
Yeah.
a
But
normal
then on the
person.
other hand, that's kind of the point I'm making about like how this like I do think it's just important because it's like, for example, and he's probably listening to this episode because he listens to most of our episodes. My friend, who I go to the movies with regularly, before we started going to the movies regularly, he was not a movie guy like me. Still to this day, I don't think he would describe himself as a movie guy. He doesn't have a proper film education. He does not really care to get one. You know what I mean? Like it's not even just like that. He never studied film. It's like he also just he doesn't want to learn more about like film as a medium. Like listening to our podcast is really where he gets a lot of his information about movies. And so
I'm
I can
so
appreciate
sorry.
that he does that. No, but like I'm not being a dick to him. Like he would say
No,
all of
yeah,
these
yeah, yeah.
things, like it's like this is just how like his relationship to movies until 3 years ago was just that like he just watched movies, And now for however many years, I don't know if it's 3 or whatever, like him and I have been going to the movies together almost every week for several years. And like a normal person, like one of these people who we're describing, would probably not make that kind of commitment. And yet, so many years later, despite the fact that he doesn't like need to learn more about the medium or like the history of the medium or whatever, or like what goes into great filmmaking, like all these things, he still enjoys doing it every week. And it affects his life probably in a positive way because he's seeing all these movies. And like it probably does something for you know what I mean? And so I'm like, everybody could be doing this. It's not like just my friend who I go to the movie. It's like everybody could just like consume more art. Like it's like or you don't even have to think critically about it. You could just start going to the movies and just enjoy it. But it would probably still benefit you in some way.
Yeah.
I would think.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways,
Anyway,
the studio's
way off
good. Funny
yeah, way
episode
off
of the
track,
studio.
but I enjoyed the studio. Probably my favorite, not even probably my favorite episode so far.
Yeah.
Um, that's gonna be a hard one to top. I'll say. I
It
don't.
was good.
I don't know that another episode this season could compete with that, but we'll see. And then The Last of Us is, well, that episode might not be competed with this season either, but I guess we'll also see.
We'll
Two
see.
good episodes of TV this week, I'd say. Uh, we'll see you next week for two more. Bye.